What if I told you that even after massive airstrikes and advanced weapons, a country still managed to survive and fight back? This is the story of Iran and the United States, and a conflict that refuses to end. It begins in 2025 when the US launched Operation Midnight Hammer, using B-2 stealth bombers to strike Iran's key nuclear sites, Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, and Karaj. The objective was clear: destroy Iran's nuclear capability. At that time, Iran had over 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, which, if pushed to 90%, could produce up to 10 nuclear weapons. The strikes were intense and highly precise. But here's the twist. After the attack, nearly 200 kilograms of enriched uranium was still safe. Satellite images showed trucks entering nuclear facilities before the strikes and leaving shortly after, spreading out in different directions. Iran had already moved its most critical materials. They didn't just rely on one location either. Advanced centrifuges and spare parts were stored separately across hidden sites, allowing quick rebuilding. The US declared success, but in reality, Iran's nuclear program was delayed, not destroyed, and operations quietly resumed underground. Then in December 2025, something bigger happened. Mass protests erupted across Iran, spreading across 10 to 17 provinces. Even Tehran's Grand Bazaar shut down. The government responded by cutting off the internet, but protesters stayed connected using unauthorized satellite devices, coordinating and organizing in real time. Iran blamed the US, calling it a regime change attempt. The crackdown was brutal, with over 5,000 people reportedly killed, and the protests eventually faded without major change. In early 2026, negotiations restarted in Oman. Everything looked positive, progress was strong, and a breakthrough seemed close. In just 24 hours, over 1,000 strikes were carried out, targeting Iran's top leadership gathered in Tehran. The strategy was simple: remove leadership, collapse the system. But Iran had already prepared for this. They had divided the country into 31 independent command regions, each capable of operating without central control. So even after losing top leaders, the system didn't collapse. Instead, it became harder to negotiate because there was no single authority left to talk to. Then came Iran's retaliation, and this changed everything. The attacks didn't stay limited. Iran struck Israel and expanded operations across Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE, targeting US bases and strategic locations. The conflict was no longer local. It became... So how is Iran holding its ground against a superpower like the US? The answer lies in strategy. Iran's geography gives it a natural advantage, surrounded by mountain ranges like Zagros and Alborz that act as defensive shields. Its size also matters. Damage in one area doesn't cripple the whole country. On top of that, Iran has built underground missile bases inside mountains, making detection extremely difficult. And then comes cost advantage. Iran uses cheap drones and missiles in large numbers, while intercepting them costs millions, creating a financial imbalance. But the most powerful factor is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage through which about 20% of the world's oil flows. Iran doesn't need to destroy everything. Even a small disruption here can stop ships, raise insurance costs, and spike global oil prices, affecting economies worldwide. And it doesn't stop there. There are serious concerns about attacks on desalination plants in Gulf countries, which provide drinking water, and even underwater internet cables that carry global data, banking systems, and communication. So now the situation is critical. Diplomacy is struggling, war is risky, and escalation could impact the entire world. Because if this conflict goes further, it won't stay in the Middle East. It will affect everyone. This is no longer just a regional conflict. It's a global pressure point, and the next move could change everything.